Hey guys, in this month's top 5, I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite books that I've read so far this year in 2024. I've decided to try and do something new for my top 5 videos. I was like, you know what? Why haven't I brought my chair over here to film so I can relax in my chair and be comfy and just swirl around at my heart's desire, you know? But for real though, I probably shouldn't spin around. It's getting me a little dizzy. Might be making you a little dizzy. So anyway, you guys, welcome, top 5. This is going to be all of the books that I have enjoyed thus far this year in 2024. So let's get going. At number 5, The Foxwife by Yangzi Chu. If you happen to read my written review on Goodreads for this book, I was a little bit underwhelmed with this book and a little bit disappointed. But yeah, that being said, maybe I just haven't read a lot of really terrific books this year so far. The thing is, this book still very easily makes it into my top 5 of the year so far compared to some of the other things I've read this year. But yeah, even though Yangzi Chu, I've enjoyed The Ghost Bride and The Night Tiger. I definitely far preferred those books compared to this, but there was still something enjoyable about this book. As usual, Yangzi Chu's writing is just absolutely gorgeous and descriptive, and you just always have such a wonderful sense of place and time within her books. So yeah, this book was no exception, you know. Yeah, some of the plot elements of this book, it's like I feel like this book could have been edited in certain places. The plot could have been just condensed a little bit. Things could have just ran a little smoother. But still, in general, I did enjoy this book. My written review might have sounded like I didn't, but I still enjoyed it for the most part. I did enjoy the characters and the plot, even though I would have done the plot maybe a little bit differently, kind of organized it a bit differently, I still liked the plot to some degree, if that makes sense. If you don't know what The Foxwife is about, it takes place in the very early 1900s in Manchuria, and it's essentially Yangzi Chu kind of doing her version of Chinese lore and mythology when it comes to foxes. Because in mythology around the world, no matter what continent, the foxes in mythology typically tend to be like trickster gods, and they're really seductive and they're shapeshifters and whatnot. So yeah, Yangzi Chu is definitely playing with that whole thing with Chinese mythology with foxes, and our main narrator is a shape-shifting fox woman, and she's telling us her side of things, and yeah, letting us know what the misconception about foxes are, what's fact, what's fiction, you know. And yeah, the big thing with our main protagonist, like I said, she's a shape-shifting fox woman. Her child has recently died, and she blames somebody for that. So this whole novel is her journey and her quest to seek justice and revenge against those who were involved in the death of her child and whatnot. And yeah, there's actually quite a lot more going on in this book other than that. There's like a whole detective side plot with a elderly man who's investigating this death of a young courtesan. She died mysteriously out in the snow. It seems very suspicious, so there's that whole side plot. There's a whole nother side plot with a family that the firstborn sons in the family, they all die before like their 24th birthday, something like that. So that's like a whole nother side plot. There's a lot going on in this book. That's why I was saying, like, I'm very 50-50 with this book, because there's so much going on, and I feel like some of it could have been condensed down and made a little bit more sense. Like the main story with the fox lady and her seeking justice and revenge for the death of her child, like I kind of wish the whole book was just that because I highly enjoyed all of that. So that's really why this book is definitely making my top 5, at least for the year so far. Now we shall see when I get to the end of the year and I do my top favorite books of the entire year. There's a good possibility this book might not make the list, but yeah, for right now, since it's the halfway point, it at least makes number 5. At number 4, We Are Only Ghosts by Jeffrey L. Richards. This was a really harrowing, tragic story, but there is a sense of hope and light and something that is a little uplifting by the time you do reach the end of this book. So if you don't know what We Are Only Ghosts is about, let me tell you. It takes place in the 1960s in New York City, and it follows a man who, during World War II, he was at a concentration camp. And he was not only Jewish, but he was also gay. And so now, living here in New York City, 1960s, post-World War II, he has survived the horrors of a concentration camp. Walking back into his life one day at this restaurant, walking back into his life one day is a former Nazi officer. And the thing is, they had a rather problematic, toxic relationship with one another. Yeah, guys, it's that kind of thing. Yeah, they had a, I don't even want to call it a romantic fling. I don't even want to call it that because it's just really disturbing and really disgusting. And that's what this whole book is an exploration of. It's about this man, like I said, he's a Holocaust survivor, and yeah, he was forced to essentially be a slave in this Nazi officer's home during the war, and yeah, forced to have sex with him, essentially. And this novel is an exploration of identity, because yeah, our main protagonist is definitely going through an identity crisis for sure, because during the war everything was stripped from him. His name was stripped from him, everything about him was stripped from him, his family was stripped from him. So yeah, he comes to New York City after the war, having to make a new identity, a new name, new occupation, you know. So it is, this whole book is definitely an exploration of one man's identity crisis and trying to reclaim who he is truly. And yeah, it's just all very problematic and terrible when this former Nazi officer comes walking back into his life, and it's very, very confusing for him. He doesn't quite know how to feel, behave, act. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. Very, very interesting, very compelling, really hard to get through at times. There's some really just despicable, disgusting moments that happen in this book that you were just like, oh no, why? So yeah, you spend this whole book really rooting for our main protagonist and hoping for the best for him. At number 3, What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. And this is book 2 in the Sworn Soldiers series. The first book in this series was What Moves the Dead, and that was like a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher. And if I'm not mistaken, back when I read that book, which was maybe a couple years ago, that book was like one of my top favorite books of the year. And I'm trying to remember if it was my favorite. It might have been my favorite book of the year. So I had a lot of high hopes for this second book in the series thus far. So yeah, this is a second book in this series. I'm not going to sit and overly spoil much of anything, but I think you can go into this book having not read the first book, to be quite honest. I think this book can easily stand alone to some degree. So yeah, we return with the characters from the previous novel. Our main protagonist is a non-binary character named Alex Easton. Alex Easton is returning to their home, their estate, and there's just pure chaos. The groundskeeper is dead, the house is in disrepair, and there's superstition amongst the local villagers that there's some sort of monster lurking around that's sucking out like the life and soul and breath of people. So yeah, people are mysteriously just winding up dead for no reason. So yeah, this book, it's in the horror genre, just like the very first book was. I don't think this book is anywhere near as terrifying or scary as the first book, but I still enjoyed it. I loved being back in this world. I love being back with these characters. And yeah, they're super tiny books. They're so quick and easy to get through. Yeah, the main threat in this book wasn't really much of a menace to me, to be quite honest. There was just so much about What Moves the Dead that I loved and enjoyed. But yeah, this is still a worthy follow-up, and I'm excited to see what T. Kingfisher does next, because I hope that she continues with this series. I really hope so, because so far 2 books in, great. At number 2, Royal Blood by Amy Carter. So this is what you got to know about this book, you guys, because I ended up being very pleasantly surprised. I went into this book thinking it's a young adult book. I don't know. It could go up or down for me, but I ended up being very pleasantly surprised with this book. This is what you need to know. This book follows a young teenage woman who she's actually the illegitimate daughter of the King of England. Yeah, guys. So yeah, this book is like an alternative royal British monarchy. So yeah, you know, the current British monarchy, we have King Charles and William and Kate and Harry and Meghan and all that, you know. This book is definitely an alternative take on that, so none of those characters even exist. They are not part of the royal family and whatnot. So I just loved this book. This book is like I said, it's about this young woman. She's an illegitimate daughter of the King of England, and yeah, she comes to England to stay with the family, her extended family, who do not even like her or know her or understand her. Plus, she's American. And yeah, she's arrived in England for certain plot reasons. Some things happened at the very beginning. She gets in a little bit of trouble. She's a bit of a rebellious girl. So yeah, this whole book, it's about this young woman, her identity within this family, her place in this family, and yeah, she just wants to be who she is. She doesn't care what others think. And yeah, once the public find out that she's the illegitimate daughter of the King of England, oh boy, all hell breaks loose. Poor thing. And yeah, there's all sorts of gossip and scandal spread about her, and she's all in the media, the newspapers and television. And yeah, there is a big murder mystery that happens fairly early in this book, and of course she gets kind of wrapped into that whole thing and kind of becomes a scapegoat almost. So she has to clear her name, like, hey, it wasn't me who murdered this guy, I gotta clear my name. So yeah, this is a young adult book with a bit of some murder mystery elements, some romance elements. It was really fun, thrilling, engaging, well written. I was just, like I said, I was very pleasantly surprised with this book, and I cannot wait to get to the second book. And at number 1, my favorite book that I have read so far this year in 2024 is The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. And you guys, right now, this book is most likely definitely going to be number 1 for a very long time. Like, even when I do my top 10 at the end of the year, I'm anticipating this book remaining my number 1 book of the year. So all these other books that I'm going to be reading through the year, there's going to be some pretty stiff, tight competition to beat this book so far. Wow, I freaking love this book, you guys. And it's like, how do you even talk about this book? It's very easy to kind of sit and spoil this book, because it's really specific. But I gotta talk about it, you know. I can't just sit and say, yeah, it's my number 1 and just end the video, you know. So this is what you need to know about this book, and I'm going to do my best to stay away from spoilers as best I can. Our main character is a guy named Aidan Bishop, and he has 8 days to figure out the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. The death of Evelyn Hardcastle is no surprise. I mean, it's right here in the title. We immediately know from the get-go with this book that Evelyn Hardcastle is going to die. Now, here's kind of the big kind of twist of the book, in a sense. This book has a lot going for it. It's both a murder mystery book. It's also kind of a bit of a historical fiction book, but it's also a science fiction book. There's a lot going on. So our main character, Aidan Bishop, he has 8 days to figure out the death of Evelyn Hardcastle, but also he has 8 host bodies that he's going to be inhabiting each day, that he's going to be using these people to figure out the death of Evelyn Hardcastle. I'm not quite sure if any of that made sense just now. That's where the science fiction element of this story comes into play, because it's a time loop. Each day is a time loop. Aidan Bishop has to repeat the exact same day for 8 days in a row, and he body swaps essentially. Each day he wakes up, he's in a different body of a different guest at this party that's being held. And that's really all I can say. Yeah, guys, it's really all you need to know. You got some body swapping going on. You got a murder investigation going on. It's a bit Downton Abbey. It's a bit Agatha Christie. It's pretty thrilling and exciting, you guys. And every single page of this book, I was just constantly flipping, and there was so much that was unexpected and unique and interesting. I really have to praise Stuart Turton for just the absolute just genius and creativity and uniqueness of this book. It is just one of the most unique books I have ever read. This book just really kind of breaks the mold for murder mysteries, in my opinion. It doesn't follow kind of what you traditionally are expecting with a murder mystery, if that makes sense. He definitely does his own unique spin, and he's thinking outside of the box for this type of genre. And I love that, and I appreciated it. And it's not going to be for everybody, okay? Let's be real. This book is not going to be for everybody, because you're going to leave this book still having questions, and a lot of those questions are not going to be answered. Stuart Turton is expecting you, the reader, to be really smart and intelligent and to think for yourself. He's not here to over-explain anything, and I appreciated that. So yeah, this book, for creativity and uniqueness alone, and just constantly keeping me guessing, yeah, this book is definitely a #1 for a reason. So you guys, that is it for my top 5 favorite books that I have read so far this year in 2024. In the comments below, I'm definitely super curious your favorite books that you have read so far this year. Have you read any of the books that I have read? Maybe you enjoyed them, maybe you hated them, that's okay. But yeah, I definitely want to know what you guys have enjoyed so far this year. Yeah, what is the one book that has just stuck out with you that you are anticipating remaining like a #1 for you? So you guys, that's it for this video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you like this video, you may like these other videos. Bye guys.